I was in court that morning for what should have been a routine appearance. I had been subpoenaed as a witness in a small-time burglary case. Nothing big. I was in plain clothes, no badge, no stripes, just a simple navy blue suit. It wasn't unusual. I liked to stay low-key. The courtroom was full, buzzing with impatient voices and the occasional thud of boots on tile. I took a seat quietly in the back corner, scrolling through some notes on my phone, waiting to be called. That's when it happened. A loud argument broke out near the front. A woman was trying to explain something to a deputy who looked like he'd already made up his mind. She was tall, poised, maybe in her early 40s, and held a calm but firm tone. But the deputy wasn't having it. He barked something about disrupting the courtroom and ordered her to leave. She didn't. She tried to explain again, something about waiting for her case. He grew more agitated. And then, without warning, he shoved her. Hard. She stumbled back, bumping into a bench. Then came a swift kick to the leg. The courtroom gasped. Phones came up. People froze. She winced but didn't yell. Instead, she slowly stood, brushed herself off, and said 7 words that changed the entire room: "I need to speak to the judge." The room hushed. The deputy was breathing heavily, still posturing like he was in control. But I could already see it in his eyes. He knew he'd made a mistake. The judge, an older man named Whitaker, looked up from his stack of papers, clearly annoyed. "Excuse me, what's going on here?" he asked, peering over his glasses. The woman didn't flinch. She turned to him calmly, still favoring her left leg from the blow. "Your Honor, I came here this morning under official assignment. I was waiting for this court session to conclude before introducing myself to the staff. Unfortunately, this deputy here decided to remove me with force before I could even explain." There was a pause. A long one. The judge narrowed his eyes. "And who exactly are you?" The woman reached into her inner coat pocket and slowly pulled out a black leather folder. She opened it, held it up. From where I sat, I could see the glint of a badge, silver, not gold, and a deep blue ID card with bold lettering across the top. The room inhaled as one. "I'm Chief Dana Merritt. I was confirmed 3 days ago as the new police chief for this district." Dead silence. The deputy's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Just the sound of his own breath catching in his throat. Judge Whitaker blinked slowly, like he wasn't sure if this was a prank. "You're the new chief of police?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she replied. "And this man assaulted me in a courtroom filled with witnesses." The judge turned to the deputy, whose hands were now trembling slightly. "Officer Keener," he said sharply. "Do you understand what you've just done?" Keener's voice cracked as he tried to speak, but Chief Merritt cut in. "I'd like to handle this matter internally, but I'm going to need your full cooperation, Your Honor." Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It had the kind of weight that filled the room anyway. You could feel the courtroom shift. Everyone who had been watching, jurors, attorneys, clerks, even defendants in orange jumpsuits, all leaned in like they were afraid to blink. Judge Whitaker adjusted his robe and nodded slowly. "You'll have everything you need, Chief Merritt." Deputy Keener finally found his voice. "Ma'am, I didn't know, that's exactly the problem," she said sharply. "You didn't ask. You assumed." She stepped forward now, steady despite the limp, and addressed the whole courtroom. "There's a culture in this district that needs to change. Fast. And this," she motioned toward Keener, "is the exact kind of behavior I intend to root out." Keener looked down, jaw clenched, clearly wishing he could disappear through the floor. "I don't care who someone looks like. I don't care where they're sitting or how they're dressed. You do not put your hands on someone just because you feel like it," Merritt continued. "And certainly not in a courtroom." No one dared interrupt her. Then she turned back to the judge. With your permission, I'd like to begin a formal investigation into what just occurred, and request access to all security footage from today's docket. Judge Whitaker nodded. Granted. And Chief Merritt, for what it's worth, I deeply regret what just happened in my courtroom. Thank you, Judge, she said, then turned to the stunned bailiffs. Please escort Officer Keener to Internal Affairs. Effective immediately, he is relieved of duty pending review. The silence was thick. Even the sound of Keener being led out was muted, like everyone was holding their breath. And just like that, the dynamic had flipped. She wasn't just a woman in a suit anymore. She was the one in charge, and no one in that room would ever forget it. As Officer Keener was led out, staring straight ahead with the weight of his own choices settling on his shoulders, Chief Merritt turned back to the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice calm but commanding, I'm aware that what happened here this morning may have shaken your trust. I want to be absolutely clear, this is not the standard we uphold. Not anymore. People nodded subtly. Some whispered to each other. The atmosphere had shifted, not just because someone had been held accountable, but because the person doing it had stood her ground with quiet, controlled power. I watched from the back, still stunned. Chief Merritt walked up to the bench and handed the judge a sealed envelope. This is the official memo from City Hall confirming my appointment. It includes clearance for full access to all precinct records, including personnel files. Effective today. Judge Whitaker took it, scanned the seal, and gave her a respectful nod. Understood. I'll notify the clerk and court security teams. She turned slightly and scanned the courtroom, not with arrogance, but with purpose. She met eyes with everyone, the public defenders, the prosecutors, even the janitor near the side door. Then her gaze landed on me. I stood. I didn't salute, we weren't in uniform, but I gave her a small, respectful nod. To my surprise, she walked toward me. You were taking notes earlier, she said quietly. You a witness? Yes, ma'am. I'm a detective, off duty. Here on subpoena. She studied me for a beat, then gave a short nod. Good. People like you are going to help me change this place. I'm in, I said simply. Then let's get to work. She turned to exit the courtroom, not flanked by guards or paraded by press, but walking alone, head held high, with quiet authority. And in that moment, everyone knew, the department had just changed forever. Word spread fast. By noon, every precinct in the district knew what had happened in courtroom 3B. Some scoffed, some panicked, but most. They respected it. Because finally, someone at the top had put action behind the title. Chief Merritt didn't wait for a press conference. She didn't posture. She went straight to headquarters and began reviewing footage, case files, and complaints that had gathered dust for years. The very next day, an internal bulletin was issued, mandatory conduct review. Department-wide. Zero tolerance. No exceptions. Officer Keener. He was placed on administrative leave pending disciplinary proceedings, and several prior complaints tied to him were reopened. The courtroom footage spoke for itself, and this time, no one was sweeping anything under the rug. As for the community, they noticed. People started showing up to town halls again. Residents who had once avoided eye contact with patrol officers now walked up and asked to meet the new chief in person. Merritt didn't hide behind a desk. She walked the streets. She stopped into local businesses. She asked questions, and more importantly, she listened. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about restoring balance. Respect. Trust. I ran into her again 2 weeks later at an interagency meeting. She was in uniform that time, crisp navy, clean stripes, the chief's badge gleaming on her chest. She saw me across the room and gave a small nod. Still with me? She asked. I smiled. All the way. And in that moment, I realized something, that courtroom incident, it hadn't been a scandal. It was a reset. And she was the one strong enough to hit the switch. 3 weeks after that courtroom incident, Chief Merritt called a closed-door meeting with all command-level staff. No media. No politicians. Just officers, lieutenants, and captains who had been running things their own way for too long. She stood at the front of the room with a large folder in hand. Inside this folder, she began, are 23 internal complaints that were dismissed without proper review in the last 2 years. Most were marked lack of evidence. But I've seen the footage, I've read the reports, and I know what really happened. The room went still. I didn't come here to make speeches or play politics. I came here to clean house. She placed the folder on the table with a firm thud. If you're doing your job with integrity, you have nothing to worry about. In fact, I'll fight for you harder than anyone. But if you're using your badge as a shield for personal power trips, you've got a problem. A me problem. One captain tried to object. With all due respect, Chief, some of those reports, she raised a hand and cut him off. Captain Davis, one of those reports is about you. You'll be interviewed by Internal Affairs this week. You may want to review your own files. Murmurs broke out. Some officers stared straight ahead, others exchanged looks, half shock, half respect. No one had ever called out high-ranking officers like that. Not in public. She finished with this department will not operate on intimidation, bias, or ego. We work for the public. Not the other way around. If anyone has a problem with that, this is your chance to turn in your badge, no hard feelings. Not a single soul moved. Because they all knew, things were never going back to the way they were. In the days that followed, the ripple effects were unmistakable. Investigations were launched into officers who had long enjoyed immunity, and a wave of internal audits swept through the department. Some officers chose to resign rather than face the scrutiny, while others doubled down, hoping to weather the storm. But Chief Merritt remained relentless. One afternoon, I accompanied her on a walk through a neighborhood known for its tense relationship with the police. She stopped to talk with residents, listened to their frustrations, and promised real change, not just promises. There's no quick fix, she admitted. But we have to start somewhere. And starting means admitting the past was broken. Her words resonated with the community. Slowly, the tension began to ease, replaced by cautious hope. Back at headquarters, Merritt assembled a task force dedicated to transparency and accountability. Body cams were mandated for all patrol officers, and a new hotline was set up for citizens to report misconduct directly to her office. It was a new era, one where the badge meant responsibility, not privilege. And every time I saw Officer Keener, now sidelined and under investigation, I was reminded how one moment in a courtroom had sparked a revolution. Chief Merritt wasn't just the new police chief, she was the change this city desperately needed. Months passed, and the department began to transform visibly. The old guard was shrinking, replaced by officers who embraced Chief Merritt's vision of justice and respect. During a city council meeting, Merritt presented her quarterly report, numbers showing a significant drop in complaints and an increase in community engagement programs. The room erupted in applause, a rare show of unified support from politicians, activists, and law enforcement alike. Later that evening, Merritt and I sat in her office, going over plans for a new outreach initiative focused on youth mentorship. This job, she said, is about more than enforcing laws. It's about rebuilding trust, one relationship at a time. I nodded. You've already done that. You changed everything with one stand in the courtroom. She smiled softly. That moment wasn't just about me. It was about what the badge should represent. And it's just the beginning. Outside, the city lights shimmered, a reminder that even in the darkest places, a spark of change could ignite a brighter future. As the new police chief, Dana Merritt became a symbol, not just within the department, but throughout the entire city. Her leadership sparked conversations about accountability, respect, and the real meaning of service. Community events featured her regularly, and local news outlets began highlighting positive stories about police and citizens working together. But Chief Merritt never forgot the moment that brought her to the forefront, that tense courtroom scene where a single act of resistance shattered old patterns. She often said it was a reminder that courage wasn't about being loud or aggressive, it was about standing firm in truth, even when the odds seemed against you. And for the officers and citizens alike, that lesson resonated deeply. The city had found a new way forward, led by a chief who wouldn't let history repeat itself. Time went on, and the changes Chief Merritt initiated became the new standard. The department wasn't perfect, no organization ever is, but the culture had shifted from one of tolerance for misconduct to one of accountability and transparency. New recruits were trained with an emphasis on respect, empathy, and community partnership. Veteran officers who resisted the change either adapted or moved on. More importantly, the people who once viewed the police with suspicion began to see them as allies. Trust, slowly but surely, was rebuilt. One day, I saw Chief Merritt back in that same courtroom where it all started. This time, she wasn't just a witness or a stranger, she was the chief, respected by all, commanding attention not through force, but through unwavering integrity. As she passed by, our eyes met again, and she gave me a brief nod, a silent acknowledgement that we had both been part of something bigger than ourselves. That day, I realized that real leadership isn't about titles or badges. It's about standing up when it matters most. And Chief Dana Merritt had done exactly that.